Good evening. My name is Justine. I am on the board of directors for the CBA Alumni chapter. Thank you so much for joining our third annual entrepreneurship event, where we have our panelists here and for a Q&A portion of basically what is an entrepreneur, what does this entail, what are the obstacles and challenges that some entrepreneurs face, and how do you even get started? Maybe you guys have some ideas. You want to start a business, you have an idea, but you have no idea of how to start. And so this is a forum, this is a safe space for us to kind of get to pick some of the alumni's brain and see, what their journey has been, and some tips and tricks and resources and tools that you guys can take away. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm going to pass it over to our panelists so we can start to get a quick introduction, get to know these panelists, and then get into our Q&A portion of the event. So I'm just going to go around the room and have our short introductions. So Eviana, if you want to go ahead and start us off.
Definitely. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here and really glad to be here. My name's Eviana. I run Step Zero Studios. So it's kind of like a creative media studio. And it started off as a photography business that I started actually while I was at Cal Poly doing grad photos. And it started to trickle into headshots and corporate. And so that's kind of what I've been doing for the past 8 years or so, on and off. So again, it kind of goes from like a side hustle to a full time, depending on the workload that I have. And now a recent venture that I'm doing with my husband is a preventative maintenance company for vehicles called Zen Car Care. And I'm class of 2018, and I studied communications and journalism.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. Elena, if you'd like to go next.
Sure, Elena Einstein. I'm a director of contracts for a nonprofit organization. I deal with mostly space, and our largest customer is NASA. As part of my entrepreneurial, I've always had a passion for consulting and teaching and running workshops and leadership. So, as my side business, I would call it, is leading the Einstein Group, and it's a consulting firm working with leadership projects. And my major was e-business and contract law at Cal Poly Pomona. So, hand it over back to you, Justine.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, Lupe, if you'd like to go next.
Hi, yes, my name is Lupe Ruiz. I am a broker of real estate. Besides that, I also have a business that incorporates notary public services, and I also co-founded a nonprofit organization and other businesses that I have in the works. But I graduated in 2005. Not that I want to give up my age, right? But 2005 with management and human resources degree.
Nice. Thank you, Lupe. Anna, if you'd like to go next.
Hi, everyone. My name's Anna Wooten. I ran two companies. One was called Plant Planner, which is a vegan meal planning app that partnered with vegan influencers to have accessible software. And then I ran a company called Let's Build My App, so building quick apps for other entrepreneurs. Those closed out last year and the year before. And now I'm currently in market research for building a wellness and recipe app for those who are suffering from autoimmune disease and working on elimination diets. So that's what I'm doing currently right now. And I studied FRL, Finance, Real Estate, and Law, with my emphasis in law and contracts.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna. Chris?
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Holyfield. I'm one of the owners of My Healthy Penguin. We're a meal prep delivery service, and we deliver throughout all Southern California. I graduated Cal Poly in 2016 with the emphasis in entrepreneurship. Literally the day I graduated, we ran to the kitchen to prepare like our very first year of making meals. We have about 30 to 35 employees right now, and our kitchen is based out in Rancho Cucamonga, and we deliver all throughout Southern California. Right now, we have another sales channel where we have smart fridges where we stock it with healthy meals, and we're in police stations, car dealerships, and other businesses.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Isabel?
Hi, everyone. My name is Isabel, uh, CEO of Estendo, which is a company I launched when I was still at Cal Poly Pomona, really driven by um, my experience with my sister suffering a undiagnosed head injury. So we're focused on the field injury and illness detection technology, and then we work with different um, departments of the government, such as Defense Health Agency and the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And I studied mechanical engineering at Cal Poly Pomona and graduated in 2019.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Isabel. And Nate?
So my name is Nate Paremba, and I'm a student at Cal Poly, and I started Golden Hour Books this summer, and we pick up books for free in the community here in the East Bay, in Northern California, and help people clear out their homes with books they're not reading and donate them to local organizations and sell a small portion of them as well. And since this June, we've donated 35,000 books to Friends of the Library programs and organizations that ship books to schools in South Africa. So I'm passionate about helping others and helping the community. And I figured this is a good opportunity for me to do that.
So cool. Thank you for that, Nate. Okay, is there anyone I'm missing as far as our panelists go? No, all good? Okay. Always love to double check. All right. Thank you guys so much again to our panelists for being on this evening. I'm going to go ahead and get started into some of the questions here that we have in which students submitted. So jumping in right into our first question, what were some of the resources that you used when you first started your business? And anyone is free to just come off mute here and just answer any of the questions that you would like to give your insight or your perspective on.
For me, on anything and everything, it's literally $500, and you just use it to keep paying for the next, for instance, for us, our first customer, took that money, invested it for the next customer, took that money, invested it to the next customer. It's called like feeding the machine. And if you work fast, that's pretty much all you need. And honestly, people, he's just anyone that you can find, any advice, your Instagram followers, is pretty much anything you have is nothing too small to start with. And you kind of just scale it from there.
If I can add to that, for me, I used my savings, but eventually along the way, I started as a sole proprietor and then I became a corporation. Whether you are a corporation or a sole proprietor, there's also opportunities out there for grants. So that's an option out there. Like if you contact your local SBDC, that's part of the SBA, they can guide you through that if you want to start a business. So that's a resource there. I have been able to get grants as well as my savings ended up using.
Yeah, to add on to that, I also very early on was very thankful to be awarded grants with the Small Business Innovation Research. But right after I started, I was introduced to I-Corps, which is a program at Cal Poly Pomona. for entrepreneurship. And um, that was a very big resource for a lot of students because it actually walks you through a lot of the initial steps that you have to go through, finalizing that elevator pitch, understanding, what legal resources are available and what you need to set up first, and understanding, doing your market research and all of that. And so it was a good crash course when starting a business. I think that can help you with kind of the initial stuff. And yeah, as Chris mentioned, just any money you can get um, would be fantastic. And again, you just keep pushing it in, and getting 20 bucks, 100 bucks, 1,000 bucks from whoever is going to make a big difference.
This is Elena. For me, it was really helpful to have a mentor that was already a consultant and kind of had gone through starting his own business. And he helped, I shadowed him and what he did, and he walked me through all the steps and provided me resources and guidance. And so that was really helpful. And when I did my doctoral program, I took a consultant class and kind of was really helpful to work and network with other consultants and how they set up their business and how they marketed, and building my business plan and so forth. So that was really helpful.
Nice. Thank you guys. That was really good insight there. Another question that was submitted says, what was the most helpful piece of advice you received when you first started out as an entrepreneur?
I can start. Say something that one heck, so needing to spend on certain ads and things like that. And so I would take photos of folks that were graduating, knew somebody that so it kind of just spread around what I was doing. And even so much, people were still hitting me up to ask grad photos and things like that. And then I was also part of a sorority, so then that also trickled to other universities besides Cal Poly. So definitely don't underestimate word of mouth referrals or people that even just friends, family, and could potentially be like a potential client. And I like to think about it as someone can be past, present, or future client.
So I can touch on something that wasn't necessarily related to entrepreneurship, but I think it is, that I got advice when I was at a conference with Cal Poly last year, was that you really need to understand your own personal why. And I wrestled with that question for a few months and realized like you have to have something that's driving you, whether it's to start your business or like a purpose. And I found that to be very helpful. And I appreciated that question. And I found that for me personally is something that what my why is helping others. So I wanted to continue that with my business.
I can't remember personally just because there's a lot, but my best advice, if I were to give it to young entrepreneurs, is read as much as you can. If you want to jump a decade of just hell through what everyone's gone through, just read books because they all will say all the things you need to know, whether it's about running a culture, employees, cash flow, profit, marketing. There's a book on everything. And what's even more important is everyone's failures. It's learn what they did to save yourself that pain and just read as much as you can. And even if it's just a nugget out of 300 words, it's that one nugget from every book adds up and you can apply it to pretty much anything. So that would be my advice. I wish I started doing when I was younger.
I think the best advice I got was not from somebody who was in entrepreneurship, but it still applies, is done is better than perfect. Just get it done. If you spend a lot of time on the details, you'll never get to where you want to go. So, and the other piece of advice that I got was know the bigger picture, right? The biggest vision of where you want to go. And that can change, but don't put yourself in a corner, basically. And that really helped me see personally, like if I was going to stay in corporate world or go to entrepreneurship. So yeah.
Nice. Perfect. Thank you guys. Those were some really good pieces of advice there. Another one of our questions submitted states, how do you move past doubt and fear? How do you become more open to risk?
If I can jump into that one, to me is just staying informed, taking calculated risks. I know that sometimes they say, oh, just, if you don't risk, you don't win, right? But at the same time, for me in my example is I like to research and do calculated risks so that I can kind of balance that fear, because that fear, I think for me, fear is always going to be there if there's a risk, but at least if I know that I've been informed, it makes it easier.
I think to add to Lupe, it is about, at least for me, it's having as much information. So going back to what Chris said, is make sure you read. There's so much research. I mean, if you're a good researcher, you'll be able to put together what you need to make informed decisions, so that even if you fail, which is okay because that's trial and error and you get better. But there's a lot of tools and a lot of resources out there to guide you through it, to help remove the doubt and the fear.
For me personally, I had a lot of conversations with sort of mentor figures and people I've met who are entrepreneurs. So sort of seeking out other entrepreneurs and coming to events like this, I think makes a big impact on moving past that doubt and fear. And also, I had this Jeff Bezos quote that I thought of when I first was thinking about starting what I'm doing now. It was like, when you're 80 years old, you're gonna look back and see, are you gonna regret doing what you're doing right now? Are you gonna make this decision and you realize there's really not that much downside, and you have your whole life to recover from any of the mistakes you make now.
For me, my take is you don't. It never goes away in some capacity. The thing is, you just get numb to it. It's kind of like anything that's new. When it's new, you're scared, and then when you just kind of get into it, you just get used to it, and then when you take on something new, it gets scary again, and you just kind of have that loop. It's kind of like what Elena said is at that point, just the more information you can get, the better, because at least you can make a more informed decision and just kind of follow where things go. But I mean, you kind of never really do get past that. It's just you get more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I call it being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You
Exposure.
just get used to it, and at first it makes you have like stomach ache, and you feel as inks, and then you get used to it, and then you're still nervous, but it just becomes a normal feeling, and you can get past it.
Yeah, like we have a saying with my employees is if we have the same problem, it means we're not growing, so we need new problems. And if we have a new problem, it's a good thing because it means we're growing.
Mhm.
Definitely.
So good. Thank you guys for that. That's a really good perspective there. Okay, so another one of our questions says, are there any resources for financing a startup? I know we kind of talked about some of the resources when you first started your business, but are there any resources for financing? I know some of you guys said you used your savings, things like that. Are there any possible sites, websites, tools that you guys know that we can provide to the students where they can get a better idea of how to finance their startup?
There are I don't know if they consider them banks, but that do work with small businesses and startups that provide loans besides the SBA. And I think actually that work with the SBA to provide SBA loans. So that's an option there.
If you want financing with the SBA and stuff, which is what I got for building out our kitchen, uh, the second you know you're going to move forward with your business seriously, because our cost to it is create an LLC immediately, but only once you know, because our fees every year you have to pay it. It's because the first question the bank's going to ask you, how long has your business been in business? That's the first thing they're going to ask. And then the second thing is, do you have cash flow? And they're going to ask for bank statements. If you don't have either of those, they won't lend you money. So the
2 years,
second,
2 years
so
ideally,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
here. So ideally, right away, create it and then just work with what you got. And then at least once those 2 years pass, you kind of get to where you can apply. And SBA is a great way to move forward once you're kind of serious.
Great. Okay. Thank you guys for that. Those are some good resources there. Okay, moving on. What are future areas or opportunities that you guys see for entrepreneurs? So I think this question is more geared towards, you have those students that have the entrepreneurship mindset and they just want to see where the most growth is in the field. So what are some of the fields maybe that you guys are seeing that's open opportunity for some new entrepreneurs?
I'll just jump in here. I mean, what I'm seeing is just accessible technology. So you have a lot of like no code, low code kind of things that you can spin up really quick ideas and really test it out quickly with customers to see if it's actually a value or solving a problem. Obviously, AI is coming in ways that we don't even know yet. And so we're right now, my business partners and I were experimenting building an app in partnership with AI. So obviously AI backed technology is going to be here. So I think it's really about the psychology of the customer and how are we really actually solving problems for them instead of just continuing to throw junk at them. So yeah, I would say accessible technology. I mean, my vision for when I started working with influencers is that every influencer had their own app and nobody's selling other things. They're not partnering. So that's kind of where I'm still kind of working out some of those details. But for me, yeah, accessible technology.
Yeah, I think really any area where, maybe even you've experienced a problem is an opportunity. I think taking a look at your experiences, what you encountered, whether it was, physical, mental, or emotional, or whatever it could be, a situation where, you had an issue or problem and you didn't have any tools to help you. I think that's always a big opportunity because more likely than not, someone has gone through the same thing as you and didn't have the tool. So I think that's always an opportunity, no matter in what area or field that we can address, and any entrepreneur should kind of look kind of past into their own experiences and then start to connect with other individuals that have gone through something similar.
I think anything having to do with clean energy is something that is probably going to be a successful business. There's a lot going on with clean energy, solar or things like that.
I think regardless of where things go, I think on the other side of that is finding things that are inefficient. And what I mean by that is because everything is going so efficient in AI, it's lacking the customer experience, that personal touch. So the more you focus on those customer interactions, you'll stand out. Like the first thing you'll see is a lot of these companies, their Yelps, their reviews lack customer service. So whatever idea it is you decide to do, really focus on delivering for each and every customer. And then you'll be surprised even how that will kind of create a niche within itself for whatever you decide to do.
Nice. Thank you guys for that. Um, okay, so another question we have is, what is your greatest personal challenge as an entrepreneur?
I would say that in the beginning, it was finding a community of people who were also entrepreneurs. I kind of, growing up in a very typical, conventional, environment of everyone has a 9 to 5, and then it just felt kind of lonely because, who could I talk to that understood the things that I was going through, and being able to understand, where I'm struggling in certain areas and someone's like, just get a job. I'm like, but I don't want to do that. I know that there's a different way to go about, the things that I want to do in my own career as a creative, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's also in filmmaking. And so I think that was the biggest challenge, was knowing that other people may not understand the path that I chose or why I chose it because they're seeing certain struggles. But I would say, like, once you really do find people who are on that path, or finding a mentor and someone who is even 2, 3 steps ahead of you that you can ask questions, because sometimes the conventional route is not, those aren't the answers that I need. I want someone who knows what I'm going through. And that's when I just started to find other networking groups and things like that. So I would say that I'm still kind of finding the people that I really want to grow and expand with, as an entrepreneur, and do things and not have to feel like I'm waiting to have a vacation in order to live the life that I want, that I'm creating the life that I want now. And some people didn't understand that in the beginning. So it really was like believing in your own vision.
I would say the greatest challenge that I've faced in entrepreneurship so far is co-founding and founding agreements. So anybody that you go into business with, whether it's friends, family, partner, you're really going to understand each other's values and the heart and the mission of why you're doing things together. So just making sure that you're really clear in alignment, because when money gets involved, people sometimes change. So having those contracts and those clear agreements from the beginning is really important, and understanding your why you're in business together. So yeah, being really clear on just making sure who you're founding with.
Yeah, I think for me, some of the challenges I call it filling the pipeline of work. So, kind of what I do today may not lead to a customer immediately. It's building those relationships, word of mouth, having that, um, the why. Why is it important? Does it give you joy? Are you solving a problem? Are you helping others? At least for me, that is what is important. So being present, going to conferences, going to networking events, really being available to meet the customers for the next, right? For a year from now, for 2 years from now. It's not just, hello, I'd like to, do a workshop for you today, right? It's hello, and you get to know them, and then when they have a need, they come, and ask you for, for a quote, and how can we do that together? So it's really just marketing for the future.
So good, Elena. Yeah, good advice. Definitely building relationships for the long run as well. Okay, so next question here states, how do you prepare yourself for a first business as an entrepreneur? So what are some of the things that you guys did? Maybe that question is open to interpretation, right? So it's, maybe was there something that you did for your mindset, to prepare yourself, or overall as a business to help prepare yourself for the journey that you were about to endure?
I would say for a beginner's mind, coming in and being comfortable with knowing nothing. You think you know what you're going to create, and you might actually create something totally different. And really learning how to listen and being open to like, oh, I'm thinking it's this, but I'm hearing my customer say that this is actually their problem, and can I solve that? And then getting really comfortable with, I mean, that being labeled as failure, kind of creating the wrong thing and having to rework it. But yeah, getting really comfortable with iterating on the process.
Oh, I was going to say what Anna kind of said earlier is just start. Like, it's not going to be perfect. We wouldn't have a business if we had it where we have it now. 10 years ago, we just had outrageous prices. The stuff was not put together well. There was no logo, no website. It was not sexy, but it got the job done. And then you kind of just figure it out as you go. If that's all you can do is just pull the trigger and then just learn along the way. And what Anna said too is like listen to the customer. The customer is always right. They know what they're telling you what they want. So just keep adjusting as you go forward, and then it kind of just forms itself.
I wanted to add on to that as well because I feel like when I started, I had some idea of what an entrepreneur had to be, and just going through this past couple of months running a business is nothing what I expected it to be. It's been a lot harder, a lot easier in some ways, but like there's just a lot of stuff that you do not want to do, but you have to do, and it's just having that discipline to show up every day and do those things that you don't want to do. And also, I think Chris was talking about this earlier. It's about having that good customer service. I've been trying to I was trying to automate a bunch of different things that I was doing as opposed to directly talking with my customers, which is what I've really been trying to do for these past couple months here. And I've been having a lot more customer conversations and learning a lot more about what people actually want, and that's been very helpful.
Perfect. Thank you guys. Okay, next question here asks, how do you legally protect your brand after growing as a small business?
LLC and insurance.
Nice, good advice. Does anyone else have some input on that? I know that this probably goes into digging deeper, right? Maybe you've established your idea, you have some things working, you're moving forward, and you just want to make sure that you're protecting everything that you have. So, what are some of the point of contacts maybe that you guys have reached out to? How do you even understand what an LLC is? Where did you guys learn these things? I know maybe some of these students don't even know what LLC stands for. What are some of the key resources here that you guys kind of utilize to educate yourself on that?
I mean, guys, YouTube is your friend. Like honestly, like you
I
guys
was
are
just gonna
poly.
say
I get
that.
it. I mean, I paid for the college tuition too, guys. I get it. But it's like YouTube is free. And it's like people's mistakes in books are free. Like, I mean, relatively. But I mean, it's like, I mean, outside of insurance, like I just was being a smart ass of like insurance and all. So like, yes, there is that. But Anna said earlier too, is like who you work with. Like choose your people wisely, contracts. Again, ChatGPT is great. Like there's so many easy things right now to at least get you started. And you kind of again just figure it out as you go. No one, I was surprised not one of these questions asked anything about employees. Employees is a big one because if you let anyone into your facility, your culture, it can open you up to risk. How the type of employees, the things, how you talk around them, the type of culture you create makes a huge difference on future risk that you kind of open yourself up to.
Yeah, if you're managing people, you do need to, it's a whole different level of
Whole,
making sure you have a good HR business partner, that you have the right processes in place that protect you. Right, all your agreements should be reviewed by a legal, and shouldn't just be drafting them up yourself. You should get some, again, everything's free. You can pull everything down and research it, but you should bounce that off the experts. Same thing with a tax accountant. Make sure that you're setting up the
yeah.
right, right.
CPA, a phenomenal CPA. You'll
Yeah,
be very happy. You'll be very upset when you pay their fees. and you'll be very happy when you see your taxes.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
best investment ever.
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so many mistakes that you would make if you didn't have their advice because you
Absolutely.
just don't know what you don't know.
Can
Yeah,
I
I think
ask a question on that? Is because I've seen stuff online, CPA versus like a tax strategist. Do you guys have an input on which is better?
hey Natalie.
Sorry, throwing that one in for free.
I mean, I think it depends on the business that you're in and what your goals are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you want to just make sure that the person that you're working with is,
Yeah.
reputable, has a good track record, has been referred.
Bonded. Yeah.
What was that, Chris?
Bonded. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, all of those things, right?
Yeah.
If anything, just keep good books. I mean, you could even do some with QuickBooks. It's so cheap nowadays to just link it with everything, like Shopify, all these things link. And then as long as you kind of doing the even in Excel, like Google Sheets, then you give to a tax person, just make sure not to wait till after the next year. And they'll usually be able to give you semi good advice, even someone off the street. It's just as long as you could even like bank balance, look at your accounting, like just have separate bank accounts for certain things, and you can kind of just eyeball and look at how things are going. But even there, it'll kind of help you.
Just a quick word of mine here. It depends how you set up your company, right? If it's an S corporation, C corporation, LLC, an accountant that has a background in law can help you structure your finances, can help you know the risks that you can take, how far you can push in certain areas. So where do you need to be careful, right? So
Yeah,
just rely on that.
yeah,
Somebody
especially if you have an
with a
S
background
corp.
in law. Yeah,
Yeah, because the S corp you start getting to like basis points, so it's like you definitely want someone knowledgeable.
exactly, exactly.
Could we touch on a point that was brought up earlier about employee culture, relationships, and environment? I'm curious about good strategies and insight about how to go about these aspects. I mean, I'm familiar with Rockefeller, I think Carnegie, how to win people over, but I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts.
I mean, culture just starts with core values, as cheesy as it sounds. Like it's one of those things that everyone, it just sounds lame, but it's true. If you hire, promote, and fire by core values, and you're true to it, you don't just say it and then just in a handbook and then throw it away. It's if you're constantly exemplifying them. And like for instance, like our first core value is extreme ownership. It's owning everything, no matter what. And then everything we do in our company, whether it's the employees, it's our chef, it's anyone, we're constantly taking ownership. And even when it's my partners or my fault, like you own it. And as long as the employees see that, they understand that, okay, this is important. And then times any of the other core values that applies, for instance, our company. But we hire by them. That when we're looking for people, we don't care about the skills necessarily, but does their character fit our core values? Because we could always teach that. When we're promoting, is someone exemplifying them, and then do they violate them? That's how we fire by them. And as long as you just stick to them, it's like breathing. You maintain all of the core values that you choose. So it's very important to find ones that are true to you and your what you want for your company. And as long as you can live by them and lead by example.
Yeah, I think it's just taking time to make sure that your employees believe in what you're doing and they also kind of go along and are passionate about what you're trying to do as well. And I think something that's always been told to me is hire slowly, take your time, understand your potential employee, and um, when you're sure that there's a match, it works fantastically. Sometimes it's very easy to you need people and just hire the first one you see, but I think taking the time to really make sure that you both connect on your values and your passion and what they're trying to achieve as well in their own career path um, can also be beneficial in understanding, how we can work not only today but in the future as well.
Nice. Thank you, guys, for providing your input on that question. Okay, so another question here states, how do you guys navigate the uncertainties of entrepreneurship?
Well, the uncertainties are knowing your business, right? Knowing what what you're trying to achieve and the market that you're in. So I think it's really just being informed and digging deep into what it is your goals are and your objectives and staying focused. Um, Again, for startups and technology based, those are different, right? So I won't speak to those, but because that is always evolving and changing, and so there's all kinds of things that affect that. But regulations are another one. Like for Chris, there could be some regulations in food and prep that
Yeah.
come along in state and local that could, he has to be on top of that to make sure that he's prepared for any of those changes and things like that. So um, I think really just knowing your area that you're in, your market.
I agree with what Elena is saying, and I would also say continuously assessing your business in all areas, and then determining if there's anything that you need to change or uh, pivot is important, and also to focus on what you can control because there might be some things out there that you might not be able to control, and and sometimes we overstress with those things, but I think it's important to just stay informed and focus on what you're able to control.
Yeah, I would say a really good skill to have is learning how to adapt and be resourceful. There's going to be times that you don't have the resources you think you're supposed to have, and like Lupo was saying, you pivot. And a lot of it is also just being able to have certain milestones and seeing if you are or not hitting them, depending on what your goals are for your business, because then you can kind of pinpoint what areas are not working. Like if, you're getting slower cash flow, then like, okay, well, where are my referrals coming from? Where did the business go? How is the business changing? I know a lot of photographers in the field were kind of getting scared because people were doing AI headshots. And, they're like, okay, well, now what's going to happen in photography, or how is that going to change, the media side of that? But then you realize, like, the adaptation is like there's still the personal touch, right? Some people are not comfortable with using something like a fake thing to use their headshot. They still want someone who knows how to pose them. They want someone who can make them feel comfortable in front of the camera. Especially when it comes to, doing like photo shoots, like family portraits and that kind of thing. So it's really understanding that uncertainties are going to come up, and that's kind of what entrepreneurship is that you're adapting in a world that hasn't even been set yet. You're creating new rules, new regulations, especially in the film industry, the music industry, when everything went online, no one was buying albums, right? But now again, things are pivoting. Everyone's buying vinyls. The old is back again. I went to go to like a record store and there was like $36, $40 for a vinyl, so it's kind of just part of entrepreneurship as almost anticipated that things are going to change, but they change just as quickly. So not needing to necessarily hop on a trend, but being able to stay consistent, kind of like what Chris was saying with your values, because the values are long term. Entrepreneurship is a long term game. Don't expect it to come in and necessarily make fast money, because a lot of the times, you make money quick, and then industry changes, and then you're learning how to adapt. So I would say being adaptable and resourceful with what you have and making the most of it, because it's the tide will change again and you'll know how to do it, and the rough waters make the really good captains.
Saying that last line right there.
Nice. That was really good insight. I kind of want to go off of that subject of AI. We did have a student that submitted a question and asked, they started their own company in 2013 in the area of supply chain and logistics and project management. And now recent technologies, AI has changed the game and affected many industries at different levels. Do you agree that by 2040 or 2045, 40% of the entire world workforce population will lose their jobs due to the utilization or integration of AI?
No.
Why is that, Anna?
Mic drop.
Yeah, she did. She mic drop and she walked off the stage.
There's an
Eric
engine in
just
the
stopped the
house.
camera and walked out right after that.
I mean, what is it, 2024? We don't know what's going to happen by 2040, right? But I mean, we're all humans and we need each other. I definitely it's going to disrupt a lot of fields. But yeah, I mean, I'm just pretty anti-doomsdayer, and I think you got to stay positive as an entrepreneur. You got to stay connected to yourself, as you as the center. And yeah, I mean, if it's scary, then don't try. That's what I'm gonna say. I don't, you gotta try sometimes and face it.
It's an engineering
Particularly
perspective.
who it's go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. So in Latin America, I can tell you that 1 to 5% job losses because of integration of AI has already happened. Europe as well, you're between the 1 and 3%. Central and South America also suffered that between 1 and 3. So here in the US, I did a project for Shopify a few years back. So I can tell you the massive layoffs and integration for developers. It's been just on Shopify alone, the big company, right? It's been about 15%. So is that going to happen by 2040, 2045? I can roughly tell you it's going to be 40 or 45%, but definitely it's going to have an impact. And we will see that. And this is from my engineering background that I'm telling you that, from what I see from experience, colleagues, friends overseas, companies that we work with, India and whatnot. So you're going to see this. You don't want to see doomsday coming up or we need each other. I do love to hear that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm positive about that, but the reality is different. Step why, guys. It is different. Go ahead, guys.
I mean, I
Yeah, I
think
guess my follow-up to that would be, what other jobs will be created? What other fields and what other things and what other industries? I mean, there's going to be just an onslaught of things that will need to be created, right? The world adapts. The world, we evolve as humans. There's going to be more things like that we're going to need to come together as community. There's a lot of things that are also happening beyond AI that are really, there's a lot of people wanting to move away from cities and build like more self-sustaining communities. Like there's so much that's, that people, we're going to see some splits, I think, where people are going to kind of be anti-technology and then there's going to be jobs created around that. So there's always more to come and it's really exciting time to be here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it almost doesn't matter. Like I know it will in the sense of skills, but as an entrepreneur, your job is to kind of audit that and know what's going on. Look at your competition, look at the emerging technology. So if AI is happening, that means other things are gonna come up because of it. So it's like instead of saying doom and gloom, like, oh, well, fuck me, like my business, it's your job is to figure it out and to then apply it and then say, okay, what can I do with this technology or do I need to pivot? And then just constantly doing that. Again, as an entrepreneur, AI is just one factor. I mean, there's gonna be 1,000 others. And AI is just one thing. I wouldn't be too concerned about AI from a negative standpoint. I'd be looking at it as how can I use this as a tool to then kind of figure out something else and then something else. And it'll just keep leapfrogging to other ideas.
Yeah, I'd say continuous improvement, right? You always want to be learning and growing and embracing the technology that's coming your way and being open to it and to see how you can incorporate it. And if you do that, then you will be prepared to pivot if you need to pivot, right? To see it coming before it happens to you, right? And where can you incorporate it and embrace it?
So how do y'all use AI for your businesses?
I mean, anywhere and anyhow. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality, right? Is I'm trying to make things more efficient. So if I could use it to speed up things, like even recipes uploading, I would have hired someone, to Robert's point, to upload that. And instead I used it and in 5 minutes did something that would have took someone 40 hours. And that's just kind of the name of the game. And then the same way some AI is going to replace my business. There's going to be robots making meals. It's like, and then that's my job is to figure out how to get out of that. And that's what I was saying is you just use AI and it keeps bouncing, it keeps progressing.
Yeah, I can use AI to help draft job descriptions. You can use it to help draft plans. You can help you use your business plan. You can use it. I use it to help come up with sections of proposals because it'll, write it really fast, give me an outline, then I can fill it in, right, with things that I know because I know what I'm selling, what more specific to add to it. But it gives you a really nice outline in a very quick fashion. AI, as someone described it, at least in our business, is your most eager research assistant. So it will help you, but you still need to double check their work. And they're very eager to please you. So you're going to get something from them, but it may not be accurate. So you still need the human, person to take a look at it, make sure it's correct, and make sure it's what you wanted.
I'm using it right now for a lot of secondary market research before I interview customers for primary market research. And that is true. I do ask it, tell me your sources, Claude or ChatGPT, because yeah, exactly. Thank you, Elena, for that.
Whenever I'm using the copy and paste function for actual ChatGPT stuff, I'll try to add a little bit of human error, especially on the sales side for writing. Because if it's a little bit off grammatically or you put a period awkwardly, you add something, even an awkward comma, it'll make your actual audience read it better. And you don't want that just pure AI touch. I actually add a little bit of human touch after it, specifically for sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to add, all of our technology is infused with AI, so we're actually kind of on the health AI side. So we actually do create some artificial intelligence ourselves, and I won't go too much into depth, but essentially we use it and train it on medical data sequences, so they can pick up. It just sits there and goes through all the data and picks up different anomalies that can help us detect, head injuries or COVID or flu or whatever it may be. And it can be personalized to one person. So we use it quite a bit on our technology to help us kind of shift through all the data.
And then on just a totally fun personal side, it's really good for setting up your travel itineraries as well. So plan a whole trip to Japan recently.
Yeah, I put my living, breathing to-do list on there, and then I'll have it create days and schedules and to-do lists and prioritize it for me.
That's another question. What scheduling software do you guys use to keep track of your task and to-do list? I know it's very important for us because we have a lot to do.
Pen and paper sometimes.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use Google Calendars, kind of links with all my emails, so it just populates it very nicely for me. So that's kind of mine.
Same here. Mess around with Trello too.
ClickUp is pretty popular right now.
What's great for scheduling is Calendly. It's really good for linking with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to keep track of your projects, I suggest Asana. For us software developers, and just overall, it's pretty good. And I think any industry too as well. So Asana is pretty cool.
Nice. Thanks, guys, for that. Moving on to our next question. How do you communicate your values and mission to your customers?
I think by talking to them. I think if you're the one who started the company, you understand the values and your mission. And I think you being the first one to get out there and communicate that, and that's going to kind of give you the most bang for your buck. And then as you grow, making sure that, because if you've done it, the correct way, and you have employees that have that same type of mentality, then they could go on and spread that as well. So I think it starts with you, especially as the one who started the whole thing. You understand it better than anyone. And getting out there and communicating that as much as you can, I think there's nothing quite like that.
Sometimes people want to like really know who you are, and you can send them like your LinkedIn and your resume, but it kind of comes off like kind of brash. So I have like a little infographic digital that I send people that's about me and breaks down like a little, piece of who I am and links for things. That way they can see that I actually am educated, or this is where they can find me about this, or see customer testimonials. It's just like a quick little digital, this is who I am.
Yeah, a lot of it too kind of can start with what Isabel was saying. It's like the first meeting. When I communicate with like a potential client, I'm very upfront about expectations on what they're looking for, what their budget is, on that kind of thing. So that way they know from the very beginning what to expect. And it's not a guessing game of like, okay, well, is it going to look like this or what sort of quality? I kind of ask them if they're looking through my portfolio. On the preventative maintenance side that I started with my husband, the mechanic industry kind of has a bad rap for being dishonest and overcharging people. So a lot of kind of how we're starting is we have like a lead magnet. So just kind of a thing that someone can experience our service. So that way they can get just a taste of the quality of work that we put in and have an idea of the type of experience that they had with us that they can continue. So I would say, kind of like first off, being able to set expectations, be clear on what your service is, and just making sure that you're both on the same page so that no one, isn't thinking something that isn't accurate, and then being able to follow through on that. So if you say you're gonna send this by a deadline, or you say you're gonna work on these things, I would say just kind of being as transparent as possible, so there's no misconception on what the expectation is.
So, the way I do it, communicate value, my values and business values, is definitely talking to the customers first, and then ideally they're talking to other people and spreading your mission and value around to others. But I have that my purpose and values input in all the emails I'm writing to people, scheduling and marketing posts and in reviews on my site as well.
I want to second that. I think you're the second person actually that I hear that talks about reviews. And I think testimonials are really important because that is going to also, other people are telling your future clients or customers about your values and how you treat them, which is representing your values and your mission.
I love that, Lupe. I also think there's another thing just to tag on to this. It's not every client or customer is meant for you. And so sometimes, you want to align on those mission and values. And so having that conversation in whatever way you can in the beginning. Whenever I get on a call with a client, that's the first thing I'm like, this is why I'm here. This is what we're doing. Is this fit for you?
So a kind of follow-up question that we had to this one that kind of stays on the subject of values is a question submitted by a student that said, I pursue meaning, purpose, and goodness through a Catholic Christian lens. How do I stay true to values and mission while making great income?
Okay, I read this and kind of laughed. I'm going to be honest. And my reason being is they're not mutually exclusive. Like I know a lot of broke assholes, and I know a lot of great rich people. It's just because you have a great income doesn't mean you could be a good person or be a certain type of way. I think it's just if you're gonna be a Catholic Christian lens and grow a good business and make a great income, then maybe you should reflect and when you have that income, what you do with it. So maybe treat your employees right or do things that if you have more of a philanthropic type of viewpoint to it, or maybe give to the church. I mean, whatever that is. But I don't think religion, politics, and that kind of stuff, and then business income kind of should even be in the same sentence.
100% I agree with you.
Yeah, I'd love to tag on to that. Number one, the Catholic Church is actually the richest church, I think.
Yeah, it is.
It is. And number two, I had a conversation with one of my friend's son, he's probably going to be the next I don't know, Steve Jobs or something. He's very smart and he's working on a lot of great technology. And he was involved in politics in the beginning and wanting to make influence. And the most impact and influence at this point, it seems, in our economy is to have income and money. So if you are interested in making a change in the world, I would suggest becoming as rich as possible.
Yes, 100%. Like honestly, when you have money, you can do things for people. So it's like if our employee's car needs to get fixed, we've like helped pay for that. When like times every other thing, when you have money and you can use it to help better people's lives, I mean, that's no better way, I think, than direct help.
And your business or this person, their meaning, their purpose, their goodness can all be aligned in their values as a company, and they can live them and be and have integrity and not break the law and be successful and provide value, right? You do all those things.
I wrote that question, so thank you.
You're welcome, Anthony.
That was a good question. I like that. I definitely feel like I read it a little different as well, with just kind of saying, if you're going to make choices in your business, let them be ethical, let them align to your values. And I think that the money will come regardless, especially if you're bringing it back to your faith and your source. You're not doing things or you're not making decisions based off worldly decisions, based off what everyone else does because it works for them. You're doing it because it aligns to your values and your faith. So I think as long as you keep that in your mind and you build upon that, then you will have success in whatever that means for you. It doesn't always have to mean money per se. It can mean a bunch of different things. So really good insight here from our panelists.
I wanted to add something to that. When I was at Cal Poly, I remember everyone's view of entrepreneurship is you want to be a rich entrepreneur, you want to be successful. And I remember thinking that when I was at Cal Poly. And as I've gotten older, I graduated in 2016, so it's 2024 now. There's a difference between like capitalism, which gets a bad rap, and then ethical capitalism. I think it's different when you're trying to make as much money as you can, and then when you start getting your first employees who truly buy in and care, and then you're thinking, wow, I could either do this or I could help my employee afford their car, afford their rent. Just it's kind of as an entrepreneur, yeah, you think is I want to be rich and successful and Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk vibes. At the same time, it's your job to help make jobs and provide incomes for people and make their lives better. And I think just a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk enough about that. So it kind of just going back to that question is you can make a great impact in employees' lives. It's kind of your responsibility as an entrepreneur if you are going to employ people.
Nice. Thank you guys for that. Another question here asks, and I love this question, how do you believe or how to believe in myself when the people closest to me don't? That's a really good question.
You
I
don't
think
need anyone else. I mean, you
I
just need to
think
believe in
people,
yourself.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
No, I think people don't believe in you because they have their own fears and their own doubts. And most of the time, if they're the people closest to you, they just are scared for you. Or they don't understand that. And so if you can have compassion for them in that and then just continue to trust yourself would be my recommendation. I mean, my parents will still never understand why I choose to go down this path. They're like, that's a little crazy. Uh, right? But if it's in your heart and soul, you have to follow what's authentic for you.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, I think believe in what you're trying to solve. Believe in your mission. I think sometimes it's very difficult to believe in yourself when sometimes it can be very muddy future and you don't know what's going to come. And I think believe in what you're trying to do and believing in your mission can sometimes bridge that gap until maybe you start to get your first customer and then you start to believe a little bit more in yourself. And so just believing in what you're doing has helped me in the past.
I mean, to be fair, it's like why should they believe in you at the end of the day? That's kind of use that as fuel in those early days to kind of prove people wrong. That especially as an entrepreneur, when you have an idea, that's the fun part is like, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to prove them something. And then you'll be surprised when you have an idea that starts to get traction. Usually people then start to see what you see. And then you kind of just got to use that as fuel to kind of prove a point. Don't get too involved with other people's inputs or opinions because sometimes that kind of takes you off the other direction. You got to trust your gut and not rely so much on other people's opinions. It is hard though. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
That's so good. Yeah. And also, I think if you're hearing just my 2 cents on this, if you're not hearing some of the most growth takeaways, surround yourself with people that want to grow. Surround yourself with people that are growth mindset. Because if they're in a scarce mindset and they aren't going to want to progress on in their life, maybe they're content, maybe they're stagnant in their life, and that's okay for them. And they don't believe in anything further. Surround yourself with a community of people that want to continue to progress, to have high objectives, to reach high goals. But like Chris said, there's always going to be people that probably, aren't going to have the best thing to say, or don't come from the best place. But believe in yourself and continue to push because you know what your values are and you know what your mission is at the end of the day. These are really good questions. Okay, I think we've hit most, if not all of the questions that were asked on our Q&A. I definitely want to have this portion of the event just be an open forum. And I did notice that there were some questions that were submitted as well here through our chat. So I did see Robert's question, Robert B, that asked, he started his own company back in 2013 in the area of supply chain and logistics. Knock on wood, they've been doing good. And now he's curious to know everyone's thoughts and experiences about the international business arena. What has been successful for you, if anyone has venture overseas and or internationally? So I'm not sure if anyone conducts business on an international scale, but if so, what are some of the experiences that you have or possible resources?
If you're just trying to source product, the only access that I've done internationally is just like ordering product. So like using Alibaba to find manufacturers for anything that's like a physical product. So for me, it's like labels, trays, anything. You can get it a lot cheaper and sometimes actually better quality.
I haven't personally done anything that's international, but um, again, going back to the whole SBDC, it's a great resource. I've seen on their website that they do offer guidance on that. And I think the local one, the closest one is probably, I think it's in University of Laverne. That's where it's based.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit internationally. I mean, first of all, congrats having a company for that long. That's a huge achievement. Um, I think, yeah, so we work with some production houses that are in Europe, and we are branching out internationally as well. And I mean, that's a whole nother set of regulations and different customer mindsets as well. And I mean, yeah, I think each country has its kind of own mindset and regulations that come with it. So, yeah, Google and ChatGPT have been my best friend there. And also just finding individuals that live in those countries that are in similar fields of interest. I've always cold contacted people, so I'll find someone on LinkedIn that has some experience there, and I'll talk to them and start to understand, what that kind of looks like.
Also, too, if if you have employees and you're large enough and you're going into that area, it'd be helpful to have someone with contract experience in international that has, so if you're hiring for that, make sure that they have that background and can do both domestic and international because the laws are all different.
Thank you. Thank you for that. As a matter of fact, I'm hiring somebody for contract because we're
Well,
traveling.
happy to help you review your job posting if you want.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're going overseas because like Isabel was saying, some of the things overseas versus what we do here in the States are different. So definitely the laws and the regulations are a key component.
Yeah, I've
Just
done international law for like 15 years, so and domestic, so it is different. And then culturally, you also need to be, if you're selling to international customers, you need to have customer acumen, like about their cultures and their way of doing business.
definitely.
Each country is different.
Yeah, excited. No, thank you. Thank you for that, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, another question asked, what specific support systems, resources, or policy changes could significantly elevate the challenges of being a business owner and foster a more favorable entrepreneurial ecosystem?
Can you repeat that question?
I was just about to ask.
I thought I was the only one.
I was like, what? Can you repeat that?
I was like, I'm not feeling the smartest right now.
What specific support systems, resources, or policy changes could significantly elevate the challenges of being a business owner and foster a more favorable entrepreneurial ecosystem?
Do we know what industry or business this question is
Yeah,
coming from?
very specific, or it's kind of even all over. I guess a
Yeah,
broad
because you're talking about
answer that is
policy.
A couple questions
So
there,
that
yeah.
would be the SBA and
yeah,
loans, or and do we want to elevate the challenges, or do we want to eliminate some of the challenges, or facilitate or overcome the challenges?
or like tomorrow's election, Prop 32 raises minimum wage. So for anyone in the service industry, you're going to see a lot of disruption again in California. It's just part of what comes with being an entrepreneur is you just kind of take whatever happens and figure it out. Whether it's
Yeah, yeah. I moved my LLC from California to Arkansas. So where I moved, I mean, it just depends on the state and like,
And Anna, you're in Arkansas now?
yeah.
Okay. Physically and business wise?
I know, shocker.
wow.
Really pretty here. There's a lot of startup business actually in Northwest Arkansas.
Is that
Yeah.
Walmart Towns? Well, Walmart started, right?
Walmart, yeah, this is Walmart land.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of innovation with the Walmarts here, and that's interesting.
That's pretty cool. To your question, to me, I'm concerned with the capital gains. Some of the money's in the company we invested, so if they're gonna have a bigger tax break for us on the capital gains from Kamala's perspective, uh, that wouldn't be so good. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, we also had a follow-up question from Beth Lee. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier on. Um, how do you create an LLC? How complicated is that process, and what does insurance cost in the beginning? And where did you start with insurance? So I know that Chris kind of talked about, YouTube being probably your best friend on, educating yourself on the matter of what an LLC is, and I'm sure they probably have amazing resources. YouTube is an incredible resource. I think that they have so much in so many different industries, so many different topics, where there are so many things that you could probably find insurance companies and cost. I would say even probably researching costs once you have an idea of the insurance company names and things like that. But do you guys have any more input possibly on this question of LLC and what that process was like? Maybe how long did it take you guys? Did you want to pull your hair out? What are some of the things that you guys, could have, spent a little less time on, or, things like that?
LLC is very easy. I mean, you could just literally go to inkfile.com, LegalZoom. I mean, there's so easy.
Takes
It's
like
just a
five
matter of,
minutes.
yeah, it's very easy. If anything, it's just making sure you're doing the right one. So maybe use ChatGPT or YouTube, some research to see what's right for you. Because it comes down to more to like tax, just the tax implications and then liability. But it's very easy. At that point, then you could get your EIN, and then that's when you could get your bank account because you can't get a bank account without an EIN. And then depending on your city, you just get a business license if you need it. And that's pretty much it. I think it's overly complicated. It's very easy.
Yeah, I think the part that people don't realize that the complex part is what is your business plan? What are you trying to offer? Do you know your market? The business part of just setting it up is super
Set it up's
easy.
easy. That's
But
the
you
easy.
can set it up and then have tax implications, but you don't have a plan, right? So you
Yeah,
should work on the plan first.
I wouldn't even create an LLC until you have your idea at least semi fleshed
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, because if you're in California, you got to pay a yearly fee on that. So that's why I said earlier,
$800.
don't create it unless you know you're gonna want to do it. That's kind of
I
like,
didn't create my LLC until I had my first customer ready to sign.
oh,
There
I
you
didn't create
go.
a fee
That's
until
perfect.
2 years after we did.
So, yeah.
Something that someone had an expertise in SBA. That was I wish I learned at Cal Poly how to properly apply for an SBA loan. That was hard. I mean, it's not hard; it's just very tedious. And if you didn't have the 2 years of business and all the stuff before that, we wanted to apply for one. Then at Wells Fargo, they're like, "Oh, you need more business years," so we had to wait a couple of years, and that's stuff that they don't teach you or you don't really know that. So then once we did the SBA, we didn't realize how long the process is. But then outside of that, it is fairly easy. It's just hard to get that initial access to it.
Yeah, I think for me, the hardest part was understanding all the different types of corporations you can be. You have LLC, you have S Corp, you have C Corp, and all of them, you have nonprofit and you have for benefit corporations. So there's a bunch, and I think that was probably the hardest part is, okay, which one do I fit in? Um, but yeah, as a lot of the other panelists, I think it's much easier once you understand which one you are. And um, I think the hardest part is actually, getting customers. And it's something that you don't really have to worry about until it's a good problem that you have to worry about it. Let's just put it that way. I think building your product and finding customers should be first. And then once it's actually like really going, you can think about because you also you don't have the money for it. You don't have the money to find lawyers and CPAs and all that when you start off. Those are always good problems to have. I always file that as something I want to deal with. So I think, yeah, so it's more about understanding which one you need to do, and then the process itself is paperwork.
For me, I started as a sole proprietor, and then it got to a point where when I wanted to, I did consult with an attorney, a tax attorney before. I only did the consultation, because I wanted to know, okay, am I ready or not? So, the advice at that time was, okay, once you are making at least 100,000 a year, because of all the tax implications, that's when you can, in my case, because of the requirements of here in California with the Department of Real Estate, I can only be a corporation. I cannot be an LLC. So those are things also depends on your industry. What you need to know, what are the requirements to know at what point you're going to be turning into whichever type of corporation you're going to be. And also business insurance. Sometimes, yes, you have the general business insurance, but it also depending on what kind of business you have, you might need other types of insurance also that's going to depend on your industry. So you just need to be informed. To me, it has helped to just network and get to know a lot of people because that's how you also get the resources and get the information that you need. For me, I'm in different groups. I'm part of different groups that have other people, for example, that are in business, in insurance business. So then I can get to consult, get, information from them and guidance. So if the more you can network, I think that would help too. So you could get more information related to your industry or just in general. But yes, definitely, if it's going to be insurance, you need to find out what are the requirements for your particular industry.
Nice. Thank you, Lupe. Okay, we had another question here submitted by Catherine, a little bit more specific. So her question said, I want to open a daycare center long term. Children are my passion. I'm afraid to lease the location and lose all of my savings on a failed venture. The savings are my only safety net in life. I don't have financial backing from parents or other, so the risk is too great. I can try to start a home daycare in my family's home, which would give my business extremely limited space, but I would need to find a landlord that is willing to let me run a business in their property. What can I do to start? So I think this question is kind of like a two-parter here. I think one of it kind of really relates to fear. Being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of risk that happens. And it just goes into, the money that you're putting in, and what does that mean if you don't have a plan B? And the next is daycare. And I think that I'm not sure if anyone here has experience with running a daycare. I can chime in here really quick and say that I have known someone who started a daycare. And if you are starting a daycare in a home, that would mean that everybody within that household needs to complete a background check and everybody needs to pass it. So you would have to make sure that everyone in your household feels comfortable with having that background check done and getting fingerprinted and things like that. So even though this is your business, if you're running it within a household, every single person that resides within that household would need to contribute in that way. But going back to fear and basically putting in your life savings or your savings at the time and not having a plan B, what are some of the thoughts that you guys have on that?
Well, Lena said it earlier, right? More information helps make a more educated decision. So my thing is you kind of need a proof of concept. So why don't you watch your friends, your sisters, kids, or whatever, ask if they're willing to and do it for free, get a testimonial, have them tell someone, then kind of scale it from there. And if you do it after I don't know all the different regulations and rules, but I would just start and not overly complicated. And then if you have a proof of concept, then kind of take that next step. And then you would feel a little more comfortable knowing that you have something that's actually working and you'd have some people that also could use that word of mouth.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Chris said, start as small as possible, baby steps. I don't know if there's partnerships you can do with certain schools. I was talking with a woman recently who has two Montessori schools. And she was running into a lot of issues in California as far as like with the fire codes and all of that with the buildings. It was like a headache. I don't know if you can expand or try somewhere where the cost of living is lower. I don't know how passionate you are about it, but I mean, start as small as possible and I would not recommend risking your whole life savings. I think there's fear, and then there's also, taking smaller risks.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception that you have to risk every single thing. You don't have to. You can literally take a baby step as you're comfortable. The risk comes more as you're taking risk in like how you want to move your business. But like Anna said, you can even partner with a school that's looking for someone to take over their daycare. You can partner with someone who already has a daycare and take a shift or two and even gain your network that way. But yeah, there's no need to have to spend everything all at once. In this thing, there's a lot of people who, as entrepreneurs, they start off as a 9 to 5, they build up their savings and then they go from there. So don't feel like it's an all or nothing process. Again, when I started my business at Cal Poly, I was taking photos for grad, senior portraits and stuff on the weekends, but I still had like a on-campus job. And then I got an internship at Snapchat, and then I got a full-time position there, and I was still doing my photography on the side. So don't feel like it's all or nothing. I know they think some people are like, just go for it, just use up everything. It's like, if you don't feel safe doing that, then it's not going to help as you're going about it, because you want to have also that emotional safety, not like, how am I going to pay the bills every single day, or how am I going to pay for food? That's not a place you want to put yourself in. So you can also take calculated risks. And, like everyone else is saying, just kind of like inform yourself, take the next baby step that you can take. You said it's a long-term goal, so it doesn't have to happen tomorrow. So yeah, take your time. There's no rush at all. Like, daycare is not going to go anywhere, and you can find there's going to be ways that you can do it without using all of your life savings.
I love that. Yes. And I don't know if there's any partnership you can do with nannying and really talking to nannies and like the trends that are happening right now, and just see there might be some niche thing that you could get into in the meantime.
And a good friend early on had told me, when I had talked about going into consulting, like in college, and she was like, well, why don't you work at a corporation, work at a business first, learn the ropes, learn what you need, so that then you can easily offer those services, because then what you're now an expert in the field, etc. So I think that was really helpful. So to the different comments, it's helpful to work at a daycare, see what it's like to manage it, see what it's like, what's involved, and see if that's still a passion. Right? Because it might change once you do it. You realize it's not what you want to do.
Nice. Thank you, guys. I wanted to loop back really quickly to Chris. Thank you for dropping this in the chat. I definitely missed this one on our submitted questions here, which stated, should a recently established B2B e-commerce service funnel more capital into marketing and customer acquisition, or into operations and capacity? While theoretically capacity has the ability to scale, and Chris, thank you for providing your input on this. Do not scale your business and spend money on marketing if you have not completed filling all the holes in your operations and the customer experience. What will be worse is negative word of mouth because you can't deliver. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I saw that question. I wanted to make sure I at least answered that, because yeah, negative word of mouth is actually worse, because people will say good things but also say bad things. And if you're spending all this money on ads, bringing them to a site that doesn't work or a service that you can't deliver on, it's almost worse. So you're better off just focusing on filling all those holes in the bucket. And then when you could fill the bucket, you can at least hold all those customers.
Nice. Thank you, Chris. Well, thank you guys so much. We are here at 7:30, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Again, thank you so much to our panelists for taking the times out of their day to come and share their experience, share their journey and their insight. If there's anything that students on here did not get answered, or you want to follow up, I know a couple of our panelists have dropped their information in the chat. I'm also going to drop my email in here as well, so that if there is someone that you guys need to connect to, and we have not listed a resource for you guys, please feel free to reach out to me and we can get you connected to someone right away. But thanks all for joining. I hope we answered all your questions and appreciate everyone's amazing insight. And thank you, Andrea, for hosting the event as well.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Tomorrow morning, I'll be sending out the recording as well as the chat transcript, so that you can have the resources that were provided tonight.